Hey there everyone, Fatman here, and if you're anything like me, then you watched Digimon Adventure growing up and have trouble letting go of the past, so you've continued to watch it upon adulthood. Needless to say, Digimon Adventure was a great piece of media. While Pokemon overshadowed it in terms of, well, everything, I always found myself way more drawn to the Digimon anime. The show was able to tell interesting stories with mature themes and have an overarching plot that didn't just boil down to catching them all. Over the course of Digimon Adventure, characters grew both mentally and physically, and that allowed the storytelling to advance with them and tell bigger and better stories. In my opinion, leagues and leagues better than an immortal 10-year-old beating up other kids' pets for money. For a show designed around digivolving monsters kicking the ever-loving crap out of each other, Digimon did an excellent job of dealing with personal relationships and character growth, and at the end of the day was about the relationships of the human characters and their Digimon partners. Digimon Adventure 02, shitty fan service epilogue aside, also did a fairly good job with this. While not all of the new characters were interesting, God help me, I absolutely hated Yoli, Ken made up for all of it by being one of the best written characters in the entire franchise. I guess what I'm trying to say is, the show was pretty consistent during the adventure arcs, and gave us great writing, action, and a bunch of figures that we're going to spend way too damn much money on in our adult lives. But what about Digimon Tri? At points, I kind of forgot this was a thing. Having watched the first film around the time of release, I enjoyed it, but never really felt the need to watch all of the movies. Recently, my brother purchased the 6-film set, and I decided to finally sit down and absorb it all and see what I had been missing. So, break out those Tamagotchis and digivolve yourself into a person that pays attention for several minutes, because I am about to take you into a deep dive on Digimon Adventure Tri. For those who somehow don't know, Digimon Adventure Tri is a 6-part film series and a sequel to the Digimon Adventure 02 anime. Reuniting all of the original Digidestined and finally making that horrendous epilogue at the end of Adventure 02 non-canon, the films were released across 2.5 years and even split into episodic formats on Japanese television. But more on that later. Now, I've heard some pretty mixed reactions to Tri. Some people seem to absolutely adore it as a worthy successor and sequel, and other people claim the opening cutscene to Digimon World 1 was miles better than anything we got in Tri.
Wow! Metal Greymon and Metal Mamemon!
We'll see who wins now!
Originally, I wanted to review Digimon Tri one film at a time, but after watching all 6 films across a week, typically one a night, I realized an overall review would work much better. And if you've seen the films, you'll understand why. And at the risk of sounding like a broken record, more on that later as well. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. Digi-port, open. Now the first thing I want to discuss is the animation. While the first 2 adventure installments put a big emphasis on creating powerful and unique looking Digimon, I wouldn't call the animation exactly mind-blowing, and that somewhat remains the same here. Sort of. The animation on the human characters is arguably worse. I could never pin exactly what it was, but pay attention every time they zoom in on the face of one of the human characters, especially Tai. They're so unexpressive and deadpan, it feels extremely robotic and lifeless at times. I know it's obviously a cartoon, but Adventure 1 and 2 did such a good job of giving these characters big, over-the-top expressions. And I'm not just talking about the cliche, over-the-top anime reactions. Remember the sequence after the Etamon battle in Digimon Adventure 1 when Tai leaves Kari to go back to the digital world after spending some time in the real world? The pain of his choice, and the worry of leaving Kari behind to potentially never see her again, as well as Kari's grief over seeing her brother leave, mixed in with the joy of having seen him again, is outstanding. But here, Tai can be telling you he has terminal cancer, and it still looks like his brain blew a socket trying to figure out the square root of 0. Leading into that, the animation on the Digidestined themselves isn't very distinctive. I had trouble across the entire 9+ hours of this thing telling Matt and TK apart. They're all animated in such a generic anime high school way that had I not previously seen these characters before and gotten to know them, I probably would never have been able to tell them apart. That also kind of shines through in the power of the voiceover work here too. They managed to get half of the original cast back, but Matt, TK, Kari, and Joe all got recast. And while it is a strong performance from almost all of them, hell, having Vic Mignogna, I don't know how to pronounce that, but somebody in the comments is gonna fry me for it, so go right ahead. Either way, Mr. Vic, also the voice of Broly in Dragon Ball, voices Matt here, and it's really hard to turn in a weak performance from that actor. However, they're still nowhere near as distinctive as they used to be, and Kari especially suffers from this. When Kari was talking, I honestly would have no idea who the hell was speaking until they showed her on screen. On the flip side of this though, I think that Digimon are animated better than they've ever been, especially Birdramon. I don't know what animation technique they used during this, but Birdramon is literally glowing, and the effect works so well with her orange color pattern. It immediately captures the eye and works so well throughout the entire film. Aside from that though, the Digimon themselves are so much more fluid in their movements and the way they attack. It's absolutely terrific. I was in awe every time they sprang into action, and rather than them screaming the name of an attack and us getting a canned animation of that Digimon performing that attack, they're allowed to jump and leap and fight completely freely, and it feels like this is how they would move had they existed in real life. It's such a pleasure to watch because the animators have to figure out new ways of animating what these characters are doing, so you're never just getting a close-up of a Digimon in a recycled action shot. It's pretty much new every single time. It's split down the middle as far as animation goes, but that's just kind of what this saga is. Two very different sides of the same coin. The next point I want to get into is the overall story and the writing. I'm not going to go full on into the story, but there will be spoilers, so you've been warned. I think it's safe to assume that those of us who are watching are mostly watching fueled by nostalgia. And while Digimon was always exceedingly capable of telling a darker story, things become a little too melancholy here. A new character named Mako is introduced in the first film, Reunion, as well as her partner Digimon, Mekumon. They're not the most interesting characters, but they make fast friends with the Digidestined, and for what it's worth, they do kind of fit right in with the group. Mekumon quickly becomes a DOI, a Digimon of interest, as it is later revealed that she is the source of an infection that makes good Digimon evil, as well as giving them a huge power boost and making them extremely vicious. Beginning at the end of the second film, Determination, things take a very dark turn when Mekumon kills Leomon, and I swear to God he is the Kenny of this franchise. Every time, so much so to the point where I'm expecting Agumon and Gabumon to pop up off screen and say, "Oh my God, they killed Leomon, you digital bastards." After killing Leomon, Mekumon disappears into a digital distortion, which is basically a portal linking the digital world and the real world together. There's some slight variation on it, but it's nothing we haven't seen before. Now the story actually stays really interesting going into the third film, Confession. Things are very dark and confusing, but the mystery is getting really interesting, and it had me really hooked at this point. There's still a general air of lightheartedness in the air, and it's all around some good shit. And then Patamon gets infected, and I'm like, yo, f*** this shit, try Okay, I'm good. I'm calm. You know those assholes only chose Patamon because that would hit us most in the feels, and damn did it work. To make matters worse, all the partner Digimon grouped together in what is arguably one of the most adorable scenes of this entire saga, and determined that a reboot of the digital world is the only way to fix things. And seriously, how meta is that alone? A reboot's gonna solve all the problems. Confession ends with Tentomon, after mega evolving into Hercules Kabuterimon, sacrificing himself to snap the other Digimon who have all fallen under the infection out of their stupor. And he pushes them all back into the digital rift, successfully rebooting the digital world. And in the process, erasing all of the memories of the Digidestined's partner Digimon. How depressing of an endnote is that? So remember when I said I was going to originally review this film by film? Well, at this point, at the end of the third film, I was still fully on board with that idea. The pacing was a little slower, but multiple noteworthy events had happened. And then we got the fourth film, Loss. From this point onward, things take a sharp nosedive that the franchise never really recovers from, in my opinion. The story becomes very muddled and convoluted after a series of events, including a government agent believed to be on our heroes' side secretly being responsible for the entire reboot plan, something called homeostasis that's really never properly explained is involved in using Hackmon as a mouthpiece, and Genai is evil now. So there's that. If you want an explanation for why Genai is evil, I'll give it to you the same way the movie does. Fuck you. He's evil now. That's why he's evil. It's because he's evil. He's Doc Genai now. And that's it. It's really never explained more than that. And good God, does the dialogue become 5th grade tier cringe starting at this point and just never stopping. I swear, you can do a supercut of Mako saying, "This is all my fault. Mekumon's evil now because I'm not a good partner," and it would legit be as long as one of these films is. By the time Loss ends, and the fifth film, Coexistence Begins, the saga comes down to with what I like to call Kingdom Hearts disease. Take the words light, darkness, and heart, and surround them with whatever words come to your head, but don't you dare put them in an order that makes any amount of sense. And with that, you have about the last 3.5 hours of the dialogue in these things written. It becomes so monotonous and convoluted. I was expecting Kairi to show up out of nowhere any minute and be completely useless. The final film, Future, ends on more of a whimper than a bang, and at this point I was really only watching out of obligation because I had made it so far, so why give up on the last movie? This was when I started to feel terribly bad for anybody watching this in episodic installments on TV. Because holy crap, they would be fighting through an obnoxious amount of filler. The only redeeming thing about the ending in my eyes was they realized Meicoomon, who is the source of the infection, cannot be saved. And Tai realizes that he has to make that tough call in accepting that they can't save her. So Omnimon Merciful Mode just shows up and decimates her in front of her human partner. Actual death being discussed in Digimon was always kind of a rarity, as they always opted for destroy rather than kill. And they heavily leaned down the whole Digimon never die thing, they're reborn as data. But no, she just straight up stays dead. And I love that. The epilogue picks up 3 months later, and there's not a hint of Meicoomon to be found. Also, through some Izzy magic, all of the partner Digimon regain the previous memories they had lost. So I couldn't help feeling like that plotline was contrived just to pad the runtime of loss, but at this point, it is what it is. Now I get to my final point, the good shit. I know I've been ragging on Tri a lot here, but for my final thoughts, I just want to talk about some of the better moments of the film series. Because if I'm being honest, there is a good chunk of good stuff here. For one thing, the score is absolutely beautiful. Obligatory shitty American remix of the theme song aside, of course. Every time I hear Butterfly, it's just a special dose of nostalgia, and I think it's even more than that, because the song itself is actually really beautiful. Sure, they lean on it a lot, but there are multiple different orchestral arrangements, and they always manage to make it fit the context of the scene. In much the same way Avengers Endgame used the Avengers theme for pretty much all of its big moments, this was a tune I was excited to hear every single time it came up. The Digimon themselves are always just such a damn joy to watch on screen too. I've quite literally grown up with the Digidestined, as many of us still watching have. So seeing these characters back on screen after all this time does sort of feel like a reunion. And I know that's insanely cheesy, but I really can't find more of an accurate way to describe that. I do feel like they only hired one comedy writer because literally every joke is about Agumon's battle with his morbid obesity, but just about every interaction between the Digimon had such a lovable charm about it that you wanted to create your own server where they would be able to keep you company at all times. While I do have my issues with the human characters, I gotta admit, even they were really well done for the most part. As I said before, the show's true strength was always how well they had their characters organically grow and develop. And I want to make a distinction and say, especially when it comes to, but they did such a great job overall with pretty much every human character, it's kind of hard to just pick one out. Tai weighing the morality of what he's doing and his role in it. Matt wondering if what they're doing is right because they were all so young when this originally happened, maybe he's remembering the entire thing wrong. Mimi and Joe steal the show with a particular scene standing under the overpass during determination. Izzy accepting that he can't always figure every problem out, and that some things just don't have a solution that you can find on your computer. TK accepting that in order to be a true friend to Patamon, he has to honor Patamon's wish when Patamon looks at him and tells him, if I start acting all crazy because of this infection, take me out. That was a powerful moment. Admittedly, while I felt like Kari and Sora's problems were a bit of a rehash from what they were in Adventure 1, Kari still has one of the most powerful lines in this entire series that underlines the growth and the effort that actually goes into making these characters develop over a period of time. Nearing the end showdown and realizing that Tai's judgment isn't always the best when they make the decision to kill Meicoomon, she looks at him and says, Tai, if you do this, I'll never forgive you. But you're my brother, so I'm going to fight alongside you. That's a powerful ass line. And last but certainly not least, fucking Megaforms! Megaforms for everybody, finally! When I was growing up and saw War Greymon and Metal Garurumon for the first time, I was, no pun intended, mega hyped. I realized, hey, if they get a Megaform, so do all the other Digimon, right? Right? Well, 15 years later, they finally deliver, and it is epic as hell, despite the somewhat creepy jiggle physics on Rosemon. Seeing Hercules Kabuterimon on screen was such a joy too, because I swear I remember having a trading card of him as a kid and wondering why the hell that was never animated on screen if the character already existed. Digimon Adventure Tri, for what it is a bit of a mess, but it's kind of a beautiful one in a way. I just don't think I'm capable of being sick of these characters, and maybe that's because they wisely retire them for stretches at a time. The story wasn't all there, and we have some downright irritating and obnoxious dialogue and character motif, but there are some big moments that are completely mind-blowing. And some things that this franchise has neglected since it began finally get rectified. I wish they hadn't hinged the crux of a story on a brand new character like Mako, and that we just got an adventure with the original Digidestined and their Digimon partners. But again, aside from her being slightly one-dimensional, she wasn't a horrible character. Kind of. I don't see myself desiring to rewatch this in the near future, or being completely honest, anywhere in the far-off future. But for die-hard fans of the franchise, I would say that Digimon Adventure Tri is worth at least one watch through. I can't say that I'm disappointed that I watched it through. So overall, weighing all 6 films together, I would have to give Digimon Adventure Tri an overall score of 6 out of 10. It's a tiny bit better than average, but it's not great. And honestly, when you boil it down, it's not even really that good. So here's hoping that Digimon Adventure Last Evolution Kaizanu, however the hell you pronounce it, brings it on home and hits a home run. Let's check on how that's doing. Holy fuck, they remembered the Season 2 cast! This movie's gonna...